His master's voice is one of the most globally recognisable corporate logos in commercial history. Created in 1899 by English artist Francis Berard, it's a depiction of his late brother's Jack Russell cross, Nipper, listening to a recording of his deceased owner. Francis was so enamoured by the dog's confused look of where his dead master's voice was emanating from, he decided to immortalise it to oils. As you do. In fact, Berard took so long to finish the piece, poor Nipper himself had been dead for 4 years by the time it was completed. So it's a painting of a dead dog listening to a dead man. Yeah. However, that same year, the newly formed Gramophone Company Limited loved the image so much they picked up the rights to use it for the logo of their American division, the Victor Talking Machine Company. So, with a simple tweaking, such as changing the Edison phonograph in the image to a gramophone they had developed, the logo became the iconic piece we all know today. Okay, well, thank you for the history lesson there, Larry, I hear you say. How on earth does a Jack Russell gawping at an old-timey record player lead to becoming a video game then? Admittedly, it does sound a completely ludicrous concept at first, but there is a totally legitimate reason here. Long story short, the Gramophone Company started producing discs for their players in 1907, and not wanting to share all their profits with record stores, they started their own chain of shops in 1921, called His Master's Voice, after the painting, which eventually expanded into selling all forms of media. However, they were rather late to the party selling video games. In fact, it wasn't until 1993 they wanted to get a slice of that pie, which was so huge by then, they decided to create their own chain of video game stores in the UK, named Level 1, mainly to rival Game, Game Station, Future Zone, and Dixon's soon-to-be-launched chain at Jakarta, in the days when putting an ant symbol in your name looked cool and wasn't incredibly obnoxious. So, to mark the opening of both their first gaming store in London's Oxford Street and the launch of the company selling video games in all other stores, HMV devised a national video game tournament using a game they had commissioned based on their mascot, Nipper versus the Cats. However, rather than hold the competition in stores around the country, a la Blockbuster Video, or making you do a Fred Savage and lug around a Rayman-esque younger sibling to California to get you to the championships, British gaming magazine Amiga Power simply stuck the whole game on a cover disc, in which you were given 3 minutes to get as high a score as possible, and then mailed in your best attempt, with the highest score submitted winning a princely sum of £1,000. Ooh. Nipper vs the Cats stars you as the aforementioned Jack Russell, Nipper, who, while trying to avoid copyright infringement from Underdog, must patrol the front of the London HMV store and sewers underneath, retrieving stolen CDs, audio cassettes, and the other half of the corporate logo from an army of shoplifting cats. Curb stomping said kleptomaniacal kittens rewards you with their pilfered produce, which you need to then bank by entering the front of the store. Get hit before you bank your retrieved property, and you lose a lot. Essentially, think collecting rings from Sonic if the Hedgehog was a mall cop playing by the weakest link rules, and you've got Nipper versus the Cats. Overall, it's a fairly polished, typical console-style British platformer of the time. Admittedly, it was done on the cheap, being a sprite swap of a previously commissioned game the developer Graph Gold had made for electricity company PowerGen to entertain school kids visiting their facilities. And this game itself was a severely cut down sprite swap of their previous platform game, Fire and Ice, the one with a weird looking wolf, not the Solomon's Key sequel. But all in all, not too bad for a freebie. So, with a reasonably impressive new game for the company, HMV prepared to host the grand final of their tournament with all pomp and circumstance of Level 1's opening night. However, this is where it turned into a total dumpster fire. The version of the game they had on show for the event was completely unplayable, thanks to a bug that would crash the game if the enemies were ever kicked off screen. Which, considering that's what happens to every enemy you kill, meant contestants were soft-locking the Amigas at the event every single time. How did this happen? Well, it appears that some bozo at either HMV or Graftgold, the developer, supplied the store with an unfinished, bug-riddled prototype of the game, rather than a finished version released on the cover of Amiga Power. Why no one bothered checking if it worked, let alone rush to their magazine rack to pick up some issues to replace said broken game, is anyone's guess. And if things couldn't get any worse, the night's host, then Games Master presenter, now famous movie director, Dexter Fletcher, was kicked out of the event after getting drunk and trying to shoplift several of the games on display. The irony of life imitating art, duly noted. In fact, there was so much drinking at the event, staff were finding empty cans of beer and half-eaten sausage rolls hidden behind Atari ST game boxes for months on shelves afterwards. And if the event wasn't disastrous enough, remember me mentioning Amiga Power publishing the game on their cover earlier? Well, that particular issue had to be recalled over legal threats from the Royal British Legion for them using a poppy on the cover to promote their big review of Cannon Fodder that issue. This enraged acting editor Stuart Campbell, yes, the guy from my Drivergate video, so much that in the magazine's reissue, he posted, "Old soldiers, I wish them all dead," in one of the issue's footnotes, and crediting the Royal British Legion as conscientious objectors in the contributors section. This led to the Royal British Legion threatening to sue literally everyone from ever mentioning Cannon Fodder ever again. Amiga Power's publishing director, Greg Ingham, to publicly apologise, recall the issue, again, and Campbell conveniently leaving the company a few months later. But not before quipping, "Freedom of speech, eh? Let's hope no one went to the trouble of dying for it or anything." I mean, yes, this ultimately has nothing to do with Nipper versus the Cats, but with the magazine being recalled twice, leading to terrible sales numbers for that issue, not many people ever got to play the game, sadly, which could explain why there's no information on who did actually ever win that £1,000. Maybe no one won in the end. But whichever way you look at it, the sheer amount of misfortune stacked up against poor old Nipper simply can't go unnoticed here. But that's HMV's short-lived escapade into having a video game based on its mascot. While there were promotional games based on corporate mascots before, and since, none were ever as disastrous as the plucky platforming Jack Russell.
One for all and one for one, mascot hands are always ready. One for all and one for one, helping everybody. One for all and one for one, it's a great story. Sharing everything with fun, that's the way to be. One for all and one for one, mascot hands are always ready. One for all and one for one, helping everybody. One for all and one for one.
Hello, you. Thanks ever so much for watching. I thought I'd mix things up with a Games Yanks Can't Wank episode, as I've not done one for years and I'm always getting requests. So, if you'd like to see more, please let me know in the comments below. But you can also really help me out by subscribing and taking a look at my Patreon page. But thank you again for watching, and ta-ra for now!